You go. So, welcome everyone to the Coaching Corner podcast. I am so excited to have Katy Walton here today. And this podcast is for anyone who is really looking to become a coach, who's already coaching, or they want to actually hire a coach. So, just understanding what is a coach and what do we get up to. So, Katy is here, and I will pass it over to you to introduce yourself. How would you introduce what it is that you do, Katy?
Well, I suppose in short, I run a development and coaching business, but I thought your intro was brilliant because so many people are confused. Well, what does that actually mean? So I run leadership development programs for corporate clients, but I also offer up coaching services. So I don't coach directly, I have a team working with me, and I also work with coaches to help them build their business and build their L&D skills.
I love that. And Katy, like my background. My background is like HR, psychology. So whenever you mention the word like L&D, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is my absolute passion. For people who don't know what L&D is, just tell us a bit more about that and what is it to work in corporate? Because we have these words like L&D and corporate, but what do they really mean?
All right, okay. So L&D is learning and development, and it covers such a broad range. But in short, it's about giving people the skills and the capabilities to be able to perform in their jobs properly. And when we're talking about corporates, it's kind of any company. And this is where I think there's a bit of a misconception as well, Sarah.
Yeah.
I don't think corporates can just mean huge, massive organizations. It can
Yeah.
be really tiny start-up businesses or scale-up businesses with maybe 10, 15, 20, 30 people in. So basically, it's wherever you've got an organization where you've got multiple people.
Mm. I love that. And I love that description of it because I have lots of people that I'm training as coaches. And the first thing that they say is either I want to be an executive coach and work in corporate, and it's this
Mm.
like label that they give it corporate, or I definitely don't want to work in corporate. I don't want
Yeah,
to work like
I
and,
see that divide as well. Yeah, a bit
and
like Marmite.
100%, but without even really knowing what corporate is. So I love that the definition that you've given it, because it can be like a huge company where you're like a small fish in a big pond or sea or whatever you want to call it. But it could also be like you mentioned, like startups as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So one of the things that you mentioned at the beginning was that you have coaches that work for you. And
Hmm.
we never talked about this at the beginning, but I thought that's quite an interesting concept. So if you were a coach that's looking to maybe be an associate or work for someone else, like how does that work in your business?
That's a really interesting question. So, the way it works for me and for my business is the coaches who are associates, part of the associate team, they're people that I know really quite well. So I know them and I trust them. I've seen them coaching. They've coached me as part of the process for coming on board. And basically, it means that I'll go out and I do the marketing, I get the clients on board, and then I find out a little bit about what it is that that organization wants from a coach. Then I figure out, well, who do I think out of the associate team would be a really good match for that individual? Then I share a few of the bios of the coaches, and then the coach will have what we call a chemistry call with the coachee. And that's basically a half an hour quick conversation. It just allows the coachee to get a feel for the coach, to understand what their style is, how they work, and to see who they think will be the best fit. So all the coaches in my team know how it works, and they're all happy to go through the process because we all have that similar belief that coaching is going to work best when the coachee has made a really informed decision about the coach that's going to be working with them.
Absolutely. I love that. And I've done associate work before as a coach, also as a trainer and other consultancy work as well. So in terms of like, because people ask me like, how do you price the services? Like, if you've got your own business, like how do you price it? With associate work, what I've known is that there's usually a percentage split that that person gets. But in terms of like pricing your services for your own business or your own coaching or for other coaches, like how do you go about doing that?
I tell you what, that is the $64 million question. And I cannot tell you how many people. I'll give you a quick bit of context. So, for 4 years, when I was working inside a corporate, my sole role was buying in coaching and training. So, because people know that, they always ask me the pricing question. So, my first thing is, it depends. My second, more helpful answer is there's kind
That's
of
such a get out clause. It depends.
but it so does depend. It depends on so many different factors. But to try and narrow it down a little bit, three things that I recommend. First of all, is start thinking about what you want to be earning over the course of the year. And one of the things that I've noticed with new coaches, they start off with this misconception, I suppose, that every single day they could be making money coaching. And they can fill up every single day with loads of different coaching conversations, and they then undercharge. So
Yeah.
what I recommend you do is to figure out how many days over a course of a year could you actually possibly be coaching? Because there's other things you'll be doing, like administration, like your accounts, like marketing and business development, creating content. So many things that you'll be doing. Oh, and holidays is a big one for me as well. I want to make sure I get my holidays in. So I kind of figured out I've got about 100 days a year where I can actually be charging out my time. And that's kind of quite a realistic breakdown for me. So let's imagine if I wanted to earn, let's make the maths easy, £100,000 over the course of the year, and I know that I've got 100 days, that then automatically tells me if I want to hit that goal, I've got to be earning £1,000 a day.
Mhm.
So that's kind of, I would say that's a basic, is just get really realistic about the time that you're going to spend actually earning money. Second thing is then start to think about the value of the outcome that you're going to get for your client, or the transformation that they're going to get. And what does that mean to them? And that's where, when I was talking about it depends,
Yeah.
because there are some things that people can easily see a monetary value to, and they're likely to pay more. So if we think about in organizations, if you're going to be coaching somebody who is dramatically underperforming and it's causing lots of people in their team to leave the organization, that could be costing the organization hundreds of thousands of pounds. So actually the value of your coaching is likely to be an awful lot higher than maybe some other area. So that's the second thing, is just start to think about the value of your coaching and the transformation. And the third thing is to then do a bit of a sense check, benchmark with other people. So it's not about price fixing or anything like that. What it is about is just getting realistic. And the reason I'm saying that, again, because we all know that sneaky imposterism comes in with new coaches. I see so many new coaches really, really undercharging for their work.
Yeah.
So it's not about artificially inflating your prices, but if you already know you can coach and you coach well and you get results for people, please make sure that you are not dramatically undercharging, because it makes it incredibly difficult to raise your prices further down the line.
And I think sometimes as well, when you undercharge, it makes you less desirable to the person buying in the coaching as well. It's
Yeah,
almost like questioning, why are they cheaper than other people? Um,
exactly.
And yeah, and you might be getting great results with people, but because your pricing is low, people are questioning the results that you can get based off that pricing. And it is interesting when you go into the corporate world, because there is so much opportunity potential for earning
Mm.
in that environment. So when you sometimes I feel like it's nice to ask the question what their budget is for things as well, especially with things like consulting projects and things like that, which we'll go into, like how can your coaching skills be used in other ways? Because sometimes you almost like limit yourself by thinking, I'm going to charge £1,000, when you said there the value to the business is so high
Yeah.
that the budget for the coaching, for the consulting, is just at a level that you wouldn't even think to price your services at. So it's just really interesting how the corporate world works in terms of pricing, opportunity, value you can add, and things like that.
And I think if I can just pause you a second, what you said there was really interesting about that perception that people have about quality. Because when I've been working with execs, when I was working in-house and we were hiring in coaches, I actually had some execs turn coaches down without finding out anything more about them, just because they saw their prices and they were literally 50% lower than other coaches.
So interesting.
I
Yeah.
know, isn't it?
It is, it is. And one of the th questions that's come into me is about like being able to use coaching skills in different ways. So I have so many strings to my bow in terms of like the main thing is psychology that I offer, but that's in the like coaching as part of the consulting, the training that I mentioned before. And I love having those strings to my bows because it means that when work comes along, I can think, well, does it fit some of those things that I do? Not just that I'm offering coaching, but I could also offer other things. And when you said about like working out your earning potential, I just find it gives me so many different avenues for different revenue that I can bring into my business. So, how do you help people in your business turn their coaching skills into something that they might not even have thought of doing before in the corporate world?
All right. So one of the big things is helping them to build the skills so that they can run team development workshops, programs, team coaching sessions. So it's basically facilitation skills, that's working really well with groups, and the learning and development skills. So it helps them to think about how they structure courses and workshops and training programs so they get great results. So one of the things that I've noticed with coaches is that often, certainly when I used to be a coach supervisor for a while as well, you have these recurring themes come up, especially if the coach is niche down into a specific area. They're seeing the same problems and challenges come up over and again. So wouldn't it be amazing if you broaden out your impact as a coach? So imagine you see imposterism coming up time again, then perhaps you could pull together a workshop on imposterism. So that way it means that rather than just limiting yourself to one-to-one coaching assignment, then maybe you can run multiple workshops inside an organization. So you broaden out your impact. And that's aside from being, an obvious revenue booster for you, it helps you to spread the word of the work that you're doing. But I think the most interesting thing, or one of the most interesting things, is that often your corporate clients, if you're working with a corporate, they don't see you in action when you're coaching because it's private, right? It's behind closed doors. So you run a workshop or a training program and they can actually see you in action and they can see the value of your work and what it is that you're doing, which means that you're potentially opening up the door for all of those other opportunities for coaching across that organization. So it works in so many different ways.
Yeah, and for me, I used to think that I was an introvert, but I think actually I'm an ambivert. So I find I have got some extrovert tendencies around me. So when I think of that, I think, oh my goodness, as an extrovert, wow, that would be amazing to get in front of so many more people and being able to showcase all of this stuff and being able to have that impact to and I train like groups of from 5 people to 500 people. So that's how I use it. But for someone else who might be thinking, well, I'm a bit of an introvert, like I'm so used to that one-to-one conversation, like how would they build their confidence? Like what is it that they need to do to, because it might feel quite daunting to take those skills and then put it in front of 5 people or 500 people. What would be your advice to them?
Absolutely. Well, I think, first of all, I mean, I probably would say this, but learning in a safe space with other people so you can actually start putting stuff into practice with other people who are learning at the same time. That can be a game changer for you because once you get that positive reinforcement about all the things that you're doing really well and you're then getting the support to uplift anything else, that can be a game changer. But when you're saying there about, starting off with maybe 5 people, I think that's the key. Start small. So maybe don't go from one to 1 to 500. But maybe think about, well, could you get 2 or 3 people together and have a conversation, like a group conversation together, where you're not stood up, you're facilitating the flow of the conversation. So you're asking great coaching questions, but just with 2 people or 3 people, and then start to build up from there. It's like exercising a muscle, I
Yeah.
think. If you want to get fit, you don't go and run a marathon. You start off with like I was going to say a little jog. In my case, it's more like a little
The
stagger to the end of
5K.
it's not even a 5K, it's 5 steps. Oh dear. But start off small and then build it up. You're not going to get to the big stuff straight away. Just
Yeah.
start off small. But also, I think you raised a really important point there. If you think about introversion is a preference. So we've got a choice to make. We can choose to dial up some of that extroversion, or we could say, do you know what? It's not for me. And that's
Mm,
a perfectly valid choice as well. If you prefer to just focus on one-to-one coaching, absolutely go with it. I think the more that we play to our strengths, the more
mm,
value ultimately we're going to get out of what we're doing, and our clients are going to get out of working with us.
yeah. And I love what you do, Katie, because I see that there's so many different options for people. So, yes, if I want to take it into corporate, that sounds
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant. However, if I decide that corporate isn't for me, it feels like you still give someone the toolkit that then they could build a program from that they might even want to use as evergreen. So they're not having to get in front of hundreds of people on a live basis. It's like a pre-recorded program because you help them structure that program as well. Is that right?
Absolutely. So I do, when I talk about the program that I run, so there's two: Build It Quickly, which is all about the design, Virtual Train the Trainer, which is about design and delivery. I do market it as being for people who are going to work with corporate clients, but there is literally no reason why that same structure, that same process, those same techniques can't be used elsewhere. They absolutely can be.
Okay. And I know for some people that I talk to, they're interested about like earning potential.
Yeah.
So what kind of examples have you got? And I'm a psychologist, so I'm all
Yeah.
about case studies and evidence.
Mhm.
What kind of like case studies have you got where people have been able to move from a one-to-one where maybe they were earning a certain amount to then doing corporate training and the potential there?
Oh, in terms of case studies, I'm always really mindful that I can't be talking about things without people's explicit permission.
100%.
So
Yeah.
I'm not going to give any real detail.
This is the sign of a good coach.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to tell you.
But there's plenty of examples, and you can see them all on my marketing pages of people who've gone through the program and then they've actually delivered the workshop that they've designed with me. They've delivered it out to their corporate clients the very next week. So, in terms of earning potential, it's like the sky is the limit, really, because it depends how big you want to go, how far you want to go, because you think, there's a tiered scale. I teach people how to package up the one-to-one options with programs. I teach people how to build training programs. And you think actually the earning potential to roll out a training program and then have that same client come back to you time and time again to roll out that same program over and over. And all of a sudden you've got repeat business, which
Mm,
means that because you've got that repeat business, you don't have to spend more time advertising and promoting and getting more clients in, which means your earning potentials are just going to go up and up. And the more clients you work with, the more that people tend to refer you and recommend, so long as they're happy with your work, that is. And it
yeah.
means that your earning potential can be absolutely massive. But I kind of also want to be a bit realistic here as well. I'm quite interested. There's a study that the ICF, International Coaching Federation, ran a few years ago, and they talked about coaches and their earning potentials and the fact that around 83% of coaches actually they supplement their income with
Mm,
something else other than coaching. So I think that's something to watch out for as a new coach. If you think that you're only going to be able to coach and that's it, you may need to be thinking a bit differently. And it doesn't mean coaches, training programs or courses or anything else. It may mean just looking at something else, like you said, evergreen, or there's 100 and other ways that you could boost your revenue. But
Absolutely.
yeah, you might just need to be a bit realistic. It's quite challenging, I think, for
Yeah.
new coaches to get started.
I mentioned before about like maybe even being an associate coach for
Exactly.
someone.
Yeah.
And like you said, like the earning potentials are unlimited because it doesn't just have to rely on you. Like I have worked for as an associate for someone who uses other associates to deliver even bigger programs across
Mm.
lots of different businesses at the same time. And I love what you said about the repeat business because the benefit I found of being in corporate is once you're registered as a supplier, you tend to be, like we said, like your performance needs to be there, you need to
Yeah,
deliver, but you tend to be the regular person that people call on because you are then looked at as a preferred supplier on their list.
absolutely. And a trusted advisor as
Yeah,
well. You're kind of that safe pair of hands. They know that they can call you and they know that you're going to deliver. But I think
absolutely.
you've mentioned a really good point there about associates. I started off in exactly the same way as well. So before, when I first set up my business, so I'd been working in-house, sorry, that's jargon again, in a corporate organization. I've been working in-house for 25 years. So
Yeah.
when I first started out on my own, I'm thinking, where do I even start? Where do I get my first clients from? So being an associate, working as an associate was so valuable because you
Mm.
get to work with so many different people, so many different organizations. So I started to get my first private paying one-to-one clients at that time. And at the same time, I was working as an associate coach, associate trainer. I worked as a coach supervisor, worked as a coach mentor and assessor. So loads and loads of different roles in different companies. And yeah, it took me probably about 5 months, I think, to get my first big corporate work after I set up.
And that's not actually that long. I think that's really good because you had the work coming in from the associate and then you like how did you I'm just interested to know because there might be some people out there thinking like how do I have that conversation? How do I approach corporates? How do I start working with corporates, whether it's in the training capacity or coach capacity? Like how would you advise that?
Great question. Now, remember when we were talking about corporates being like multiples of people, let's
Yeah.
just focus on one person at a time.
Yeah.
Now, my guess is that most people who are listening or watching, they'll know at least one person somewhere who they've met at some point over their life who works in a corporate organization. So I think the start point is just make a list, maybe 20, maybe 30 people that you know that work in a corporate organization, and then have a conversation with them, like a chat. And I don't mean a sales call or a pitching call or anything else. In fact, I really recommend ask for help, ask for guidance, or just catch up with them and see how they're doing. If you're having those kind of conversations with no expectation, it kind of lifts the pressure off you. Because I don't know about you, I blooming hate sales calls. I don't even call them sales calls. I don't like to have sales calls. I build
Yeah.
relationships with people.
Yeah.
And I found it's just taken so much weight off my shoulders because I'm not going into all these conversations with a goal of I'm going to pitch something to you, I'm going to sell. So if you take those 20, 30 people and think, right, I'll just take one a week and
Hmm.
I'll book in some time and say, let's go for a coffee or let's have a virtual chat. Let's just catch up, see what's going on for you at the moment. And then just as part of that conversation, you just share what's going on with your life, where you're at right now. Sometimes some of those conversations result in some work. Like I said, it's not the goal, but some of them might do because somebody might say to you, "Oh, I didn't realize you were a coach. Well, that
Yeah.
reminds me, I spoke to somebody last week who was looking for a coach. I'll put you in touch." And that's how it really happens. It's the relationships, the connections, building your network. And if you just look at it as a series of conversations with people and you build genuine relationships, I think that's where the magic happens.
I love that. And I remember back, it feels like such a long time ago now, my first ever coaching client was a corporate person.
Mm.
And they were in just a Facebook group that was for like CIPD. So it was an HR person. And we stayed in contact since. And she's referred so many other people over to me. And then they've moved to another company and then referred people over. So it's like this thing that grows arms and legs. Like it's just so amazing where it could lead to. So I love that. And I think that when we talk about corporate, people often forget that they're normal human beings that work
Yeah, exactly.
that have got normal like human problems. So when we're saying, oh, I'm not going to work with corporate, because it is so different, when you actually start coaching in that environment and training, you realize it's not that different from problems and challenges that people have outside of work.
Exactly. And do you know, one of the most humbling experiences I had, so I can't remember if I mentioned, but I had pretty huge imposterism at many different points in my career. But one of the biggest was when I first started using that label of exec coach. So I
Mm,
was working in-house. I'd been kind of coaching informally for years. And then I thought, oh, I better professionalize. I better make sure that I've ticked the boxes and I'm doing the right things. Better check that I can actually coach in someone else's opinion. And so I got my postgraduate certificate in coaching. And so I kind of labeled myself as an exec coach, and I was working in-house. So it meant I was in the organization. And for a whole year, I spent pretty much all of my time either coaching the most senior people in the organization or them and their teams. And yeah, it was such a humbling experience because for years, I'd put all of the senior leaders in any organization on a real pedestal. And I thought,
yeah.
they know so much. They're so wisdomous. They know all this stuff that I don't know and I can never know. And I was so scared working with them at first, thinking, who am I to be
Mm.
coaching them? I was really, I mean, please don't analyze me too much right now. But I mean, you can imagine it was kind of parent-child going on. It was, all sorts. But what I've suddenly realized is that when you're getting into your coaching stride and you're having those conversations, like you said, people are human beings and they're struggling with the same things. It's just as leaders, often they don't show it to everybody else. They're internalizing it. So I found actually, I think that I found it more gratifying working with the leaders than I thought I would, precisely because I suddenly realized they had nobody else. They didn't necessarily know if they could trust their colleagues. They
Yeah,
certainly didn't want to go to the chief exec. They
yeah.
couldn't unburden onto their teams. So where do they go? Who do
Yeah.
they have those supportive conversations with? So it
And
was
it
such,
literally it gives me goosebumps thinking now like the impact that you could have for those senior leaders, and the number of times that people have said to me the only other person I've told is my wife or my husband or whatever it is, because I haven't got those people to talk to, because
yeah,
I've got all this like, how will I be judged if I
yeah.
say that I feel like an imposter, if I'm vulnerable, if I
Mm.
say that I've got fears or concerns about things. So I love that, Katie. So just to like summarize what it is that you can help people with, that would be really great to understand that, and how people can contact you if they want to find out more about what you do.
Ah, okay. So first of all, I run a coaching for corporates program. So if you are curious about working with corporate clients and you kind of want a hand with getting your foot in the door and getting set up and started, I've got the coaching for corporates program. And then I've got Build It Quickly to learn how to quickly build workshops that work. Virtual Train the Trainer. So that's creating virtual workshops and facilitating them brilliantly. And Fabulous Facilitation. That's all about in-person facilitating. So if you want to get into facilitating team events. So it's not quite team coaching, but it is around how you facilitate, how you work with groups when you're in person. And ways to get in touch with me. Well, I think three ways. LinkedIn is a good one if you just want to follow and see what I'm up to. My website, which is makerealprogress.co.uk. And also, I've got an email that I send out every single Monday, come rain or shine, which it always has. Someone described it literally. In fact, it was one of my associate team described it as an oyster email this week. So there's a little pearl in there every single.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, you're very welcome to join my emails and to get a regular dose of learning and development slash coaching in your inbox on a Monday.
I love it. Instead of a golden nugget, it's a pearl.
It's a pearl. Yes, the
I love
oyster
it.
email.
And we'll obviously put your links underneath this podcast recording as well. And this will be on YouTube as well. So thank you so much for joining us,
Aw.
Katie.
Thank you
And
for having me, Sarah.
All right, best of luck with your business and everything else that you've got going on.
Amazing. Thanks so much.
All right, take care.